Hey guys, so welcome back to my video about addiction and trauma in Lord of the Rings. So just a reminder, I am not an expert in anything to do with trauma or addiction. This video is just going to be my thoughts regarding these two subjects and how they are shown in Lord of the Rings. If I say anything that you disagree with, I would love to discuss it with you down below. This is just an informal discussion. Now, of course, the other character who really exemplifies this idea of addiction and trauma, but more on the trauma end of the spectrum than the addiction end, I would say, is Frodo. Frodo has a slightly different experience with the ring than Bilbo does, because the ring's a lot more quiet and slow working and insidious with Bilbo. With Frodo, you can tell the ring is a lot more attentive. It knows Sauron is awake. It wants to get there, so it is pushing hard to break into Frodo's mind, which is why Frodo actually does crack near the end. He's under a huge amount of pressure in that final phase, and it's heartbreaking to watch. But again, I feel like Frodo's story speaks very strongly to the importance of his bonds of friendship, because the reason he's able to get through the journey to Mount Doom is Sam. There's a moment, I think it's a phrase on the Spark Notes page. I can't remember the wording, it's been a while since I read it, but it's in the character analysis, I believe, for Sam. I think it was the Fellowship of the Ring Spark Notes page. And it says something along the lines of, if it's Frodo's duty to carry the ring, it is often Sam's duty to carry Frodo. Frodo shows an immense amount of strength in this book, or series. He deals with being hunted. He deals with one of his traveling companions, Gollum, who he has immense compassion for, basically almost killing him on several occasions, actually trying to attack him on several occasions as well. Gollum bites his finger off. That's kind of terrifying. Then there's the fact that he's poisoned by Shelob, stabbed by the ring wraiths, which, yeah, that was pretty horrifying. Attacked by Boromir. He watched Boromir go insane over this thing that he was carrying, and all the while the ring is trying to rip his mind apart and take over so it can get back to Sauron. That is insanely difficult. And that's not even counting the fact that he probably had to watch Bilbo start to kind of be a little absorbed in his addiction. Bilbo was good at hiding it, but Frodo could see it. He talks about it in the book that he could see a little bit of it. And it's sad. He was so young when this started. He was 33 years old, which in Hobbit terms is when you come of age. So he was probably around the equivalent of an 18 to 21-year-old, depending on what we're talking about, when he first came into possession of the ring. It wasn't using its full power at that point, but it didn't take long. And then during the actual journey, during which he experienced sleep deprivation, exposure, probably starvation, depending on what time of the journey we're talking about, thirst, at times disease, it's definitely injury. He was poisoned on several occasions, and he has to endure all this while he's carrying this thing that's ripping him apart. And there's this moment in the movie that I think Elijah Wood does an amazing job of this scene, and actually so does Sean Astin. This scene was actually shot, both of them were shot at the same time. Normally when you're filming a scene with two people, you'll film one person and then switch and film it again from the other person's angle. This scene was filmed both of them at the same time, and that is the scene when they are sitting on Mount Doom. They're almost there, but they've run out of energy. Frodo can't walk anymore, and they're sitting there, and Sam's trying to comfort Frodo and just says, like, oh, do you remember the Shire? Do you remember all these things? And Frodo says, no, I can't remember any of that, basically. And the way they play this scene is so sad. Elijah Wood looks like he's dying. For all intents and purposes, he looks like he's going to die. Most likely, he was. The ring was killing him because it knew. The ring knew it was so close to being thrown into that volcano. If Frodo made it to the top of that mountain, he was going to die. The ring was going to die. And so it was fighting for its life. And that moment it's both really tragic. There's the moment in particular the moment when Frodo says, I can't really see any of the Shire anymore. I just have this wheel of fire before my eyes, which of course is the ring. And then in the book it describes how it's getting heavier and heavier and pulling him down. And in the movie, they actually did some really interesting makeup around his neck. If you look at his neck, there's scabbing, where you can see that the chain is digging into his flesh because the ring is getting so heavy. But throughout all of this, He and Sam are so supportive of each other, and you can see Sam's anger when he realizes how badly this is affecting Frodo. And this is the moment when he picks Frodo up on his shoulders, and incidentally, when they were filming this, that was actually Sean Astin picking up Elijah Wood, and goes up this mountain. And then, of course, Gollum attacks them, and oh, yeah. With Frodo, the trauma is much more evident than the addiction, I would say, despite the fact that he's the one who ends up being taken over by the ring at the end. It starts with Weathertop in the first book, when he is stabbed by the Nazgul, by the Witch King of Angmar. And it almost kills him. He's essentially been stabbed with this poisoned blade that is going to turn him into a wraith if he isn't cured. And they don't know if he's going to make it. And then we find out at the end of Return of the King that on the anniversary of the attack every year, he experiences immense pain and sadness, and just basically he goes into, it's almost like a trance, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And he uses Arwen's necklace. Actually, this is the one from the movie, so it's played differently there, but this, I believe, is basically the movie equivalent of the necklace from the book, so the Evenstar necklace. And it's used in the book as a sort of coping mechanism. It's implied there's some sort of elven power there. And when he's having these attacks, he's plucking at the necklace around his neck, basically just getting through the day. And that is the thing, of course. Anniversaries are very hard when trauma is involved. So you see that played directly here in a very, very pointed way. It's not described in detail, but it's enough that you know this is what's happening with Frodo. And then again, later on in the series, another really major attack happens for Frodo, where he's attacked by Shelob and knocked out and almost eaten. Now, this one, in some ways, it's less severe than the Weathertop attack, because he wasn't actually going to die from the poison itself, although he was going to be eaten, so, yeah. But he wouldn't have been turned into a wraith from Shelob. That being said, he was still going to die. And on top of that, he had just been betrayed by Gollum, someone who he was starting to trust. I don't think Frodo ever fully trusted Gollum, because, you know, he could see through it. It's different in the book and the movie. In the movie, there's a lot more psychological warfare going on. I don't particularly like what they did with that, but at the same time, I think it was good in showing how the ring was affecting the dynamic as well. But in the book, Sam and Frodo don't separate. Frodo does not trust Gollum at this point. But he does care about Gollum. He wants Gollum to heal. And Gollum betrays him. Gollum leaves him to Shelob, leads him directly into Shelob's lair so he can be eaten and killed, so Gollum can get the ring. And I think that also would have been a factor as well in the trauma. Because not only is he about to die, which traumatizing enough as it is, but he was betrayed by someone as well, someone that he desperately wanted to believe in. So, like, what do you do with this? And we know that this anniversary is another one where he becomes extremely, I'm not sure how to describe it. He basically has some form of psychological and as well as possibly physical flashback or attack. I'm sorry, I might be using the wrong words here, but the anniversary is very hard for him, for both this and the Weathertop attack. And it gets to the point where he's able to find some peace in the Shire. Things are able to be happy. He lives there for a number of years. He's able to settle down and live a mostly happy life with Sam and Rosie and their kids. He basically becomes like the uncle to Sam and Rosie's kids, and it's really adorable. But in the end, he decides, no, I need to go to the Grey Havens with Bilbo, because the Undying Lands are the only place where I'll find true peace. I think in the end, Frodo has as happy an ending as he's likely to get. He is traumatized, but there's hope for him at the end that he's going to be okay. It's going to take some time, but he will be okay. And that, for me, it's sad, but it's beautiful. You can tell that that the trauma in Lord of the Rings is being approached from a realistic perspective. Not a, there is no hope, no one can heal, but it's also not being approached as, oh, you'll be fine, you just need to talk to someone about it. Talking to people is good, but trauma is not healed from that easily. It takes time and effort and help. And in some cases, you'll live with it for the rest of your life. It depends on the person and the scenario. But there is hope. no matter how hard it is. But at the same time, Bilbo and Frodo's hopeful yet realistic endings are balanced out with Gollum. And Gollum's story is, with the exception of possibly Boromir, I would say the saddest in the series. Because Gollum, he's been completely absorbed by this thing, by the ring. He can't function without it. He's so dependent on it that he will do literally anything. He will betray the only person who has shown him any kindness in centuries, if that's what it takes to get this ring, despite the fact that he knows it is bad for him, it will hurt him, it will kill him. It does kill him. He dies because he falls off of the lip of Mount Doom into a volcano because he's dancing with joy over getting this ring. And it's tragic to watch, especially given the fact that we have seen Smeagol in addition to Gollum. Because Gollum is the abusive personality of the two. He is insistent on controlling Smeagol. He wants to get Smeagol, and he wants to be able to force Smeagol to do what he wants. But Smeagol, I mean, yeah, he's not exactly a saint, but he, at the same time, you can tell he's desperate for love and for connection, and he just wants to be free, but he doesn't know how. And in the end, it does end in tragedy, and it's really sad. So Lord of the Rings, I think, is a really good representation of, or I guess a really good study of trauma, because it's shown in a way that is compassionate and realistic. It gives hope, but it doesn't kid you about the dangers of what could happen. Anyway, this ended up being a really, really serious kind of dark video, but I wanted to talk about this. This is something I've thought about a lot in reference to Lord of the Rings. I would love to talk to you guys about this in the comments down below. If you have anything to say, please feel free to mention it. I'd love to discuss it with you. And yeah, have a lovely day, you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.